Hey, this is Shaun with the Atlanta Tennis Podcast, powered by Go Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you know Bike Friendly Atlanta, go to bikefriendlyatl.org. Check them out, like and subscribe on social media. Also, we want to hear your story on the podcast. So if you have a story to share, go to letsgotennis.com/my story, and you might have your story featured on the Atlanta Tennis Podcast. Today, this is the ultimate guide to getting your kids started playing tennis. Today, we are discussing insurance for tennis coaches. We will try not to get into the weeds too much, some examples, but basically, do you care as a parent, as a player? What does it mean to be insured? Why does it matter? And how important is it really? Dave, where do you want to begin?
I think it almost correlates with certification to a degree. You know, if I am looking honestly, I did this with my daughters when they were looking for volleyball. Kind of the same thing. I'm looking for certifications. I'm looking for, and like with any insurance, you hope you never use it. You hope that situation doesn't come up. But if it does, where do we all stand? Is there a chance that it is covered by some insurance? And that's why you have insurance. I think it just like we said with the certification to a decent degree, it gives you that peace of mind and that knowledge that they are that one step better at taking what they do very seriously. Doesn't mean you can't be taken seriously if you don't have a certification or insurance, but it's getting to where it's kind of like back in the 90s when we were traveling you were in my academy. These fictitious lawsuits of my son or daughter got hit or touched or whatever didn't really exist, and times have changed. Now you've got to have that insurance, and not a lot of people are traveling in big groups anymore. We'll meet you there to keep that safer, but it's just that knowledge that my tennis coach takes his job one step more serious than somebody who doesn't.
So at that point, what does it mean? It means your coach is taking it seriously. Your coach in the business world, in the same way, you're not going to walk into any office or any store and not have that place fully insured. That just wouldn't make any sense to any other business owner. And so if I'm a tennis coach and I walk onto the court, I need that space covered in case something happens. Now, we can go further in. Why it matters is a little bit different. At some level, there is just a comfort. There's a comfort for the coach. There's a comfort for the parent. The kids probably don't understand it depending on how old they are.
Absolutely.
So it's between coach and parent, or coach and adult player, that says, hey, if something happens, at least it's covered. Whether you and I get along after that, that's a different conversation. Because if you're mad at me, some sort of negligence, that's probably why we're doing it. But why does it matter is really, hey, you know what, coach? You could lose everything if something goes wrong.
Absolutely.
I don't know that every coach out there has their own LLC. They may just be a guy with some tennis balls and a tennis racket and teaching a great tennis lesson. This says nothing about the ability of the coach, similar to our conversation about the certification. Doesn't say anything about the coach's ability or the quality of the tennis lesson. What it does say something about is the quality of the business being run by that coach.
Absolutely. 100%. It's that's why most coaches get out of the business of traveling with groups. It's that liability that, and I think when you were, working under me, I think your parents, and we all had that agreement that we trust Dave in what he's doing with our kids. We know that learning is more than just on court. It's what you're thinking to prepare for matches. That's one thing, and I've talked with John a few times, about it. And he goes, I learned more by traveling around you and other kids than I actually did on the court. You know, it wasn't that we didn't learn on the court, but it was what you did to mentally prepare, what you did to decompress after a match. It all matters in your tennis psyche. You have to have a get up time, and you have to have an explosion down to let down, and how everybody did it. That's what we learned. We all learned from, and that was the beauty of that situation. It really was. But as far as being insured and everything, boy, it's a tough one. You can't do it 100% of the time. That's why a lot of places have gone away from traveling as groups.
Well, and our certifications have certain insurance. So you and I are both USPTA, which means
Right.
we get our 6 million on court. I think that's very specific. If a child leaves the court, all of a sudden insurance gets so they're very specific about what's covered and why. And that is something that is offered to us by our certification. PTR has a very similar insurance policy. It's $6 million. They cover on court. So depending on who you're certified with, is how that insurance plays out. You can pay extra to indemnify a facility. You can pay to have an assistant coach, essentially. And it's extremely affordable. It's amazing that they can do it, because if it's an extra 150 or 125 a year for another coach to be insured for $6 million, that's phenomenal. Going through the Safe Play certification is the next step, because that's done by the U.S. Olympic organization or something like that. And they helped USTA put all that together. We go through all the training that says this is how you treat children. This is how you don't treat children.
Right.
Don't text a 13-year-old separately. Like, just some of those things that once you go through it, it sounds obvious to keep those separations.
Right.
But I think maybe sometimes, Dave, it's not as much about the insurance, but in this case, the Safe Play, it's often about the training as well. It's about what we now understand through the training that allows us to keep those separations. Don't be in the same room at the same time alone with, I don't know, anybody. That's just a bad idea.
Right.
And I think some coaches know those things and some coaches don't.
Yeah, that's part of why it's tough. There are some great collegiate players. I remember when I was in college coming out, and teaching. There are a lot of things that I knew about the game, just from being around it so much. I probably took the get ingrained in the sport to the nth degree from about 13 on. But I was kind of funny. I was talking to my kids yesterday about it. I said, I didn't think of it as I'm starting at 13 and all these kids I'm losing to for the next 2-3 years are going to already have played 4 or 5 years. They got coaching and everything. I got no coaching, but I figured I wasn't trying to catch up. I just didn't like to lose. And so I am playing a catch up game to try to beat you somewhere down the road. But the only way to do that is be on court more and play more and hit more. But it's interesting. What I didn't know through experiences is the insurance side, the coverage side, things like that. And that's what, like I said, we said before, the greatest tennis player is going to be somebody that's about 20 years old, but has the mentality and savvy of a 50-year-old, because they understand how to pace themselves and things like that. And it's the same with this insurance. I don't know of too many people under 30 or 35 that fully understand the business side, the covering yourself side. And it's not a bad thing. It's just the way evolution, and maturity, hands itself to you.
Yeah. And to understand that is important, but it's also some of the limitations of a younger pro. And you say, hey, I've got my insurance, I've got my certification, I got my master's, I'm director of rackets and everything. Why can't I be a director of a club? I'm 30 years old.
Right.
Well, you may be of a small club, but there's an experience level that for some reason, and I had this problem when I was 25.
Sure.
I'm like, well, I could do all of this. Well, sure, but have you done it before? How long have you done it? How many things have you experienced
Right.
while
Experiencing is the
doing it's
big
just
thing.
that experience is more important as I get older, as I realize how important it is that I
Yep.
didn't understand 10
Right.
years ago and 20 years ago, especially, where
Absolutely.
you think, oh, I'm just as good on court, or I'm just
Right.
as good of a coach, or I'm just as good of a manager. Well, you have zero experience
Right.
when you're 25. You have a few years when you're 35.
Right.
So I think insurance is one of those things. I think the safe play
Yep.
that we've gone through, that my 30 days is coming up. I gotta
Right.
redo it, and it's
Right.
a little bit different every time. And they do a pretty good job with it. Is it
Yeah.
extra we have to do? Yes, but I learn a little bit of something new every time that says,
Right.
"Hey, act like this. Don't act like that." I've only got one story where I thought it was really strange. I got a coach, and I walk in, and he's shoulder massaging a 13-year-old girl, and they're in the room with other people, and there's a comfortability there that
Right.
you just can't do that.
Right.
Now, everybody in the room seemed to be fine with it, but I flinched. And maybe without that safe play, without that safe play system and all that training
Right.
and my 20 plus years of experience, maybe I
Right.
wouldn't have thought anything of it. But I also, maybe I thought, well, in that case, it's okay, I guess.
Right.
I could just be touching at all a child unless it's a wrist. And even then, when I walk up to a child, you've got to make sure there's distant, that you just got to make sure, because in this world, and as we talk about insurance, perception is reality.
Yep.
If the parents look at you and they see respect and they see that distance and they see that you know how to keep your distance from a child and how to handle those things, they're gonna appreciate
Right.
how
Right.
you operate. But if they start seeing little things, he's a little too close, or
Right.
I
Oh yeah.
get a little strange because working in preschools, I'd have little 3-year-olds coming up, give me a hug. Well, their face went right into my crotch.
Right.
And so you learn the little turn,
Turn. Yep.
right? And the little hug.
Yep.
So you just some of those things you got to, I don't want to say learn the hard way, but you get a bunch of kids coming up to hug you and you got them around and they're at your waist. And I use the 3 and 4-year-olds as that example.
Sure. Sure.
But then you just take it up to okay, you can't have your hands on the shoulders of a 13-year-old girl.
Right.
As a male, female, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. And I think
Right.
that's maybe how important is it really is always that last question we ask.
Sure.
I think in that case, that might be it.
It's interesting because two things I just thought about, which we can hold on, do a whole nother podcast on, was number one, maybe add an S to the word experience.
Mm,
Experiences.
mm,
What is your experience? What are your experiences? And that all of a sudden puts it in perspective. What this is what you need, some experiences. You don't need experience. You need to live through them. And that's a big part of it. But at the same time, what if me and you both had a certification in massage therapy? Whoa, that is interesting, because now I am a professional in that, and massaging a 13-year-old, still might be wrong, but I'm a professional. How does that change the dynamic? So I'm just throwing things out there as we're thinking about them. It's a definite deep pool that you have to think about, because if I did have a massage therapy degree or certification, I'm trying to help the kid, not only from tennis, but from massage. We know it works, it helps, but
And with the safe play training, we know that there is a plan for that, and they get on a table, and the parent is standing right there next to you
right,
while you're
right,
doing that, and you have permission to
that's right,
touch that child in that way.
that's right, that's
Not
right.
while the parent isn't around and it's just you and a bunch of kids. Like that, just some of
Yeah,
those things. Now that we've done it, it sounds obvious, and I love that experiences.
yeah,
And maybe that's how we finalize today to say, what are your experiences, and the more that you have, how many things have you been through
right,
to understand the importance of certification, to
yeah,
understand the importance of how the coach runs his business. And
right,
sometimes you have a choice. When I worked at a club and I was an assistant coach, I didn't
right,
run the business. I was just a coach there. I was learning the business.
right.
Always thought I could run. Oh, I could do this better. Of course, I could do this better. I'm
Sure.
smarter. I'm better at the. And it's just that 25-year-old that I was that guy.
Oh,
And
sure.
I can empathize with that. But what's interesting now, and I know I've talked to a lot of coaches, no, I was never like that. I'm like, okay, well, then you
Yeah,
don't have the same evolution story that I do,
that's right.
because I can empathize with that guy and say, hang
That's
on,
right.
doesn't mean I'm a better manager. It just means I
That's
manage
right.
differently, because I can understand that younger person that says, well, I can do all of that. I say, okay,
Yep.
when
Yep.
you've done it 100 times,
Yep.
we'll talk about it all those 100 times and the interesting things that happen.
That's right.
And were you insured? Were you not insured? When
Right.
did you buy insurance? I have to buy extra insurance because I have coaches that work for me in multiple
Right.
locations.
Right.
So it isn't just the insurance that comes with that. It's general liability insurance as a business, which
Right.
again, most coaches don't have that. Most coaches say, oh, I'm covered by my USPTA. Don't worry, I'm
Yep.
insured.
Yep.
Well, I'm covered multiple different ways because we work with 7-year-olds and 4-year-olds. And it's a huge difference,
Sure.
because you just need that safety. And that is on our website and says, hey, you know what, parents,
Right.
here you go. Feel comfortable. Or if you don't, fine, you can go elsewhere. But a lot of it is also that comfortability of the parent.
Sure. Sure. Absolutely. You know.
Dave, we're getting there. So
Oh, yeah.
the literal search we've found, how do you find a coach? Literally, Google let's go tennis.com/coach_finder.
Yep.
Do you have your own courts? Evidently, I've checked. There are 331 courts in the Beaufort area alone, or 331 facilities. I haven't verified that because that sounds high, but there are a lot of courts out there. Now, certified versus uncertified, we've had that conversation. Today was insurance. What kind of business are these people running?
Yeah.
You know,
That's
did you walk into a store and just say, "Hey, I'm a guy with some stuff. Want to buy it? I like cash."
yeah.
We know what that means.
Yeah.
Is your coach? Are you still taking cash?
Yeah.
It's legal tender. I don't want to have that conversation.
Right.
But it's a lot safer if you just say, hey, thanks, by the way, I just found our next conversation, Dave. The separation of payment from the player. So if I'm the player, say I'm an adult and I'm taking a lesson with you, you shouldn't be the one taking my payment directly, because now you've changed that relationship. You're not just coach, you're also debt collector,
Right.
accounts receivable. That's a separation you guys want as coaches, parents. If you're listening, watching, separate that. Somebody says, hey, by the way, you're going to pay with a credit card, pay the extra fee,
Right.
pay the 3%. It's better
Right.
that way. And usually people that have insurance have ways for you to pay online.
Oh, sure.
You're not
Sure.
handing a check to you pay the coach, and then what do? You take the next 5 minutes chatting with him, paying him cash. Oh, I've
Right.
only got 60 and it's 55. You have change? No, I don't have change.
Right.
I'm on the tennis court in my tennis shorts, and I've got the next lesson standing here. You're taking up their time.
Right. Right.
So, sorry, different conversation. Today, Dave Matthews, the ultimate guide to getting your kids started playing tennis. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. Have a good day. Bye-bye.